So,
Yeah.
so this success fallacy that people have, that just because a cafe is exceptionally busy, that it is making money, it's generating a lot of revenue. A lot of cafes do generate a lot of revenue, but that doesn't equate. It's so expensive to run these businesses that it doesn't equate to profit very often at all. Tell me, at the beginning of specialty coffee, was it like this? In your opinion?
Very much so.
Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is episode 2 of a 5-part series with Tim Wendelboe, our second episode for 2024. And we are talking about the evolving specialty coffee market. And in this episode, Tim, we're going to ask the question why this shift is occurring. Now, we coming into 2024 are entering a very interesting time on a lot of levels of specialty coffee, of coffee in general, but from an agricultural perspective, from a supply chain perspective, from a business perspective, from an economic perspective, from a finance perspective, from a labor perspective. There's a lot of things that have happened over the last, let's say, 5 years that have put a bunch of pressure on all of those different layers. What in your mind is causing the majority of the shifting that's causing this idea of specialty coffee to evolve?
Well, where to start? I think when I started working in the coffee world, a lot of the companies were kind of pushing for higher quality and kind of chasing the specialty coffee dream kind of setup. They were idealists, they started the company because they loved coffee,
right?
And really did what everyone wanted to do. We looked for better coffee and paid better prices and so on. And then I think some of the bigger companies picked up on this they called trend and wanted to tap into that market. And you see a lot of chains opening. You see a lot of bigger roasteries launching brands that are kind of more niche, just copies of independent marketing lines. And then you saw a lot of new roasters opening up, and I mean a lot, especially in Europe. Like when I opened my roastery here in Norway, I think there were less than 20 roasteries.
Wow!
And that's in 2007. And now there is more than 80 or 90 roasteries in Norway.
Wow.
So, and Norway is a small country.
It's tiny.
Yeah, and we see also in Europe, like I remember especially when we were in the World of Coffee in Vienna, I think it was 2013. That year I met so many people who said they were starting a roastery. And we had also, I was part of founding a company called Nordic Approach, which was a green coffee importer, and that was just like 2012 or something. And there was like a boom in roasters during that period, and everyone wanted to buy good coffee, and of course you get the saturation in the market. So I remember seeing a video a couple of years ago from Maxwell Colonna Dashwood. He was talking about the race to the bottom in the UK, where there was just too many roasteries who opened at the same time, trying to get the same type of customers. And the only way they could compete, they thought, was to lower the prices on the products, because they had to fund machines and give machines to the customers and all these kind of things. So then it becomes a race to the bottom, he said. And I do see that that's happening, not just in Norway, but elsewhere as well. But people are trying to compete with lower prices. And for small companies, that's just not possible. If you try to do that, then you're using the wrong strategy, because you cannot compete on price with the bigger companies.
There's always a bigger fish coming.
So you have to differentiate yourself. Yeah, exactly. So you have to differentiate yourself by doing higher quality or better service or something else. But that's difficult, and it's difficult to grow when you do that. It's difficult to grow fast. So I think a lot of people, we're already seeing that some people are giving up.
Mm.
Some companies are going bankrupt, and other companies are being bought by bigger ones. So you do see a consolidation in the market, and this happened in the beer industry as well. We saw in Norway, at least maybe 10 years ago, a lot of microbreweries opening, and now most of them are gone. There are still some strong ones back, but most of the small ones are gone.
We talk a lot. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just there's of course always when things change, there's always because of many other things that evolves, and we do see in other countries and regions like the Middle East, for instance, 10 years ago there was barely no coffee shops there, or independent ones. Now there's hundreds. I hear. I haven't been there myself, but
so many.
I do see it as a growing market.
Yeah, it's a growing market that has some of the most beautiful cafes I've ever seen in the world. Anyway, the issue is a lot of them are empty
trend now. Yeah, I do see a trend now that a lot of people who start coffee businesses today do it mainly because of the business, not necessarily because they are idealistically in love with coffee. And I am a little bit surprised by that, because having run coffee company for a long time, and also a coffee chain before, it's really hard work for very little.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Can you talk about how like how people come into this? I consult a lot, and I spend a lot of my time trying to convince people not to open cafes and not open roasteries. A lot of the time people come in thinking there's going to be base minimum 30 to 50% net profit in this industry. I know it's a joke, right? Isn't that funny? I think it's hilarious. And when I tell people the reality of what they should be expecting is more like 3% net profit, they don't think it's possible that there could be this many people wanting to open businesses in an industry where the net profit is so little. I mean, you're experienced at this for a very long time. Can you help people understand how little money there is actually in this?
Yeah, I think a very good example is that I am now partner in a coffee shop in the north of Norway. An ex-employee of ours opened a coffee shop there, and I helped her make a business plan and everything. It's in a small city, so we needed to make it like a coffee shop and a wine bar, so that you could take advantage of more hours in the store. And for the first 1.5 years, she was losing so much money. She was literally paying almost how much was it? 80,000 euros for the first year to be able to go to work. So we managed to change it now, so she's breaking even or barely making money, but it takes so much time to make up what you've lost. And but the reality is that she has to work double shifts almost every day in order to make ends meet, because at least here in Norway, labor cost is really expensive. So if you just have one person too many during work and there's no customers, you're basically screwed. The problem with the coffee shop is that you need to be open in the morning, you need to be open for lunch, you need to be open in the afternoon, and there's a lot of dead time in between there where there's no customers, but you still need to have people at work, because you can't just ask them to leave for 3 hours and then come back. That's not how it works here.
No.
So it's really difficult. I have yet to see an independent coffee shop doing really well in Norway without the owner being completely involved, working unhealthy hours. And also it goes for the chains. There's only a few of the chains here in Norway, and one of them is Kaffebrenneriet. They have 50 stores now. They have been able to make money for a long time, and because they have been very good at operating the business. But most of the chains are either losing a little bit of money every year or breaking even. And imagine having 200 employees or 100 employees, and you're losing money. Like, it's not a good thing. It's a lot of work for nothing, to say the least.
We had George Howell.
Just to compare,
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, sorry, just to give you, I had an example. There was a music festival here in Oslo a few years back, and some friends of mine had like a coffee cart there.
Mm-hmm.
Two people working all day, and they sold coffee for around 1,500 euros in one day.
Wow.
And they were working hard the whole day, making coffee. And then next door was another cart where they sold beer. There was one person there, and he sold beer for 15,000 euros in one day. One person.
Wow.
So,
wow.
there is a little bit of difference in there's a lot of work when you have to make a cup of coffee. And yeah, the margins look great, but you have to sell a lot of cups of coffee in order to pay just the rent, the lease on the machine, the labor. So it's really, when you start looking at it, if you only sell coffee drinks, it's not profitable at all. You need to sell food, you need to sell coffee beans, you need to sell other things. And that's sometimes hard to do as well.
We had George Hull on the podcast around this same time last year. And, we were talking about the cafe business model and this particularly for specialty coffee and if it makes money. And he said, oh, yeah, we've got the cafes are full all the time. And I said, but what about profit, George? And he went, oh, well, we all know there's no profit in coffee. So this success fallacy that people have, that just because a cafe is exceptionally busy, that it is making money, it's generating a lot of revenue. A lot of cafes do generate a lot of revenue, but that doesn't equate. It's so expensive to run these businesses that it doesn't equate to profit very often at all. Tell me, at the beginning of specialty coffee, was it like this? In your opinion?
Very much so.
Friends, World of Coffee Dubai is back in 2024, and I am proud to announce that the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward will be the official podcast partner for World of Coffee Dubai for the second year in a row. The Roasters Village will be a one-of-a-kind destination for all things coffee. As an exhibitor, introduce your artisanal roasts to an international audience and gain valuable insights from their perspective. Visitors, immerse yourself in the celebratory coffee culture experience by sampling exclusive cups poured with passion from cafes worldwide and absorb insights that will elevate your own appreciation of all things coffee. Whether you brew coffee or just love savoring a fine cup, this event gathers the global coffee community under one roof in an amazing city. Join us at World of Coffee Dubai in 2024 at Dubai World Trade Center from the 21st until the 23rd of January. Tickets are available at dubai.worldofcoffee.org, or you can contact us on social media for any questions that you might have at mapforward.coffee. Get your tickets now, folks. Come see the podcast being recorded live, and we hope to see you in January in Dubai for World of Coffee.
Yeah, my first job was at Stocklets, so I ran one store for Stocklets, which was a coffee chain, and I managed to make that store profitable. But I was working, more than 100% full time.
Right.
But I only got paid for 100%. And I was really on top of everything all the time. Like we threw away very little food after closing hours. So we managed to make a little bit of profit, but it wasn't a lot. And I also learned that when the owner was the roastery, even if the store broke even, they still made money on the coffee they sold to the store. So if you have that kind of model, you can kind of makes a little bit more sense. But if you just open a random coffee store and you buy coffee from whoever roaster, it's really difficult. And the reason why my store is making money at the moment, and there's periods where we don't make money at all, like for instance, January through March, there's very little guests in the store. But the only reason why we survive is because we sell a lot of bags of beans. So
retail.
We can during one busy day, we can sell maybe 40, 50 kilos of beans in quarter kilo bags. So 200 bags. But we might only sell like 150 coffees on a busy day. And But to make the coffees, you need at least 3 shifts to handle 150 coffees throughout the day. But to sell beans, you need just one person because it's easy.
And a good e-commerce store, I guess.
Yeah, but that's separate. So I keep that separate. But yeah.
Yeah, wow.
That's also a way you can sell more beans.
What role do you think that the producer is, if any, is playing in this shift in the idea of specialty coffee? Do you think that the producer and the relationship that seems to be happening between the roaster and the producer is causing a shift in specialty coffee?
That's a really difficult question. I think until now, the producer has kind of been on the mercy of the roasters. And to a great extent, I still think it is. Like if you go to Colombia, for instance, there's over 500,000 producers there. And very few of them are kind of rich producers who have the money to market themselves and, be able to find market and charge higher prices. So most of them rely on the market prices, which is dictated by the commodity buyers, So I would say that still the producers have very little influence on what's going on in the consuming countries, unfortunately. And you see that all the time because you see buyers going to Colombia, for instance, just, cherry picking coffees and dictating the price more or less, because whatever is higher than market price, the farmer will be happy, because they don't understand the value of their products, unfortunately. So these are the mechanics that I hope will change in the future, but it's going to take a long time because, again, most coffee producers don't understand the value of their products. They don't cup their own coffee. They don't have any incentives to produce higher quality. So a lot of times they just try to produce it as cheap as possible to get cash in their hands as fast as possible.
Sell the cherry, get it, put it on somebody else to take it further. I often think about the role that co-fermented coffees and this idea of producers catering to what the market wants and how that's influencing what we're calling specialty coffee these days. It's a very strange, having been, you and I started around the same time, seeing where it came from to where it's come. I'm very confused by seeing where it came from to where it now is. I'm very confused by where it's going to go from here. Is because a lot of people like these coffees.
Yeah, I still believe that this kind of crazy fermented coffees is kind of a flavor of the month, we call it.
Okay.
I mean, when I started in coffee, the big thing was putting flavored syrups into coffees. So hazelnut syrup, strawberry syrup, all these kind of things. We even sold coffee that was flavored on the beans, so the beans were flavored.
Yeah.
And that was it probably still is a big thing in the US.
Yeah.
These two things have completely disappeared from the market in Norway, except from Starbucks. They still have it. But and I think also these crazy fermented coffees is a little bit the same, because it's not very pleasant to drink a lot of, even if you're really into that kind of coffees. It's more like tasting it out of interest. So I think, again, looking a little bit to beer, when you fall in love with beer, you normally fall in love with the IPAs. And then you drink a lot of IPAs and you get a little bit tired of IPAs. And then you fall back to more subtle beers like Pilsners and lagers. And good quality Pilsners and lagers can be exceptional, but and they're difficult to make. But I'm not very worried about these crazy fermentings. And I also believe that a lot of it is hard to replicate, and also difficult for smallholder producers to do consistently without proper training and equipment. So, and also a huge risk, for them.
Big time.
The majority of the market don't want this coffee. So if you have a crazy coffee like that, there might be a specialty roaster who is willing to pay $10 per pound. But if there is none, the producer will get much lower than market price, because in the commodity market, these coffees are seen as defects. So they will not be sold for a very good price.
Which takes us to what we're going to talk about in the next episode, what does this shift mean for the producers? Because there is as this idea of specialty coffee starts to shift, and as a lot of these layers that we talked about in the beginning of this episode start to have more forces on them, particularly from an economic perspective, the ripple effect is always going to end up back down through the supply chain. So join us for the next episode, folks, where we talk about this. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day. Thanks, friends. If you enjoyed this video, here's what you should check out next. Consider supporting Map It Forward on Patreon, and be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell before you leave.